Hello everyone. I've struggled for about 8 years now to find a drumming solution for apartment dwelling. For years I struggled with this DT Explorer, and we don't all have the money to buy some super fancy Roland kit. So today I'm going to show you my solution. First, a little bit on how I built my own little kit, and second, an acoustic test on how loud it really is. First, I started with these shells I got for $50 off a guy online. 3 toms and a bass drum. Then I stripped off half the bass drum wrap and started to make my markings. Everything had to be pretty precise. I wanted a nice flush cut, and didn't have a mounted saw or anything like that to make it. With all the other toms, I made my marks in nail polish, and the cut with the jigsaw actually went pretty well. Everything turned out relatively flush, a little bit rough edges, but after a bit of sanding and beveling for the bass drum, because that was the only head that actually was going to get it. It's a pretty shitty bevel, but after I sanded it down and evened it out, it seemed to be pretty good. Cat was a little disturbed in what I was doing, but everything worked out alright. I ended up having to drill some new holes for lugs on the bass drum so it could mount a head on both sides, and in the end, there's all the drums I ended up with. Some of the bottoms I didn't end up using, but the bottom of the bass tom I did. Now these Cymbomutes, they just stretch around the outside of your cymbal and basically choke it. It works pretty well, but they do need to be the right sizes. My choice for drum triggers were these ddrums because they were particularly cheap. I also ended up with a Roland snare and Roland kick trigger, and that was because it was a gift for Christmas. Fortunately, I had all my old hardware from back in the day, so I was able to use my old kick, my old hi-hat, and some of my old cymbals. Just a basic hi-hat, basic cymbals. You can see there, that is the new beater I bought. It's supposed to be foamy on the end, make it nice and quiet. And these are the drum-tec heads. They're all mesh. It's the drum-tec basic, which is basically the thinnest single-ply one they have. A lot of bounce, very quiet. Now, I've also bought these rubber rims. I kind of regret that. Even though it does help protect my sticks and make things quieter, they are a bitch to get on. I actually needed some help to get it on. Here's those Roland triggers. They look pretty nice. They do have a hard time fitting over the rubber rims. I'm still trying to make a compromise with that. You can see I stuffed the bass drum there with some paper to make it quieter, and right there my snare drum stand I ended up having to put in because I ended up using the bottom half of my tom for the snare drum, and basically it was too big for the snare drum stand, so I had to make a little platform in there so the stand would rest on it nicely. And this is the final project. You can see there the Cymbomutes. They basically just wrap around the outside of the cymbal and choke it so that it doesn't make too much sound. I think the ride one was a little bit too big, so it does ring a little much for my taste. The drum-tec skins fit right over there, and you can see the D-drum triggers. They just mount onto the side where the lug is. The Roland ones actually just screw on, which is nice. And you can see my old hardware down here, my World Max pedals. And it all plugs into this DTX module. I'm having a little bit of issues triggering everything right now, double triggering, but I'm going to sort it out. This is the microphone I'm using. It's a Blue Yeti, and it is plugged into my laptop, which is recording through Sony Vegas. Just so you all know the parameters for which this test was occurring, the distance was about 4 feet from the kit, and I think basically we'll go over the waveforms later to see the exact difference in addition to what you hear. Now for comparison, here is a real drum. And here is a rubber pad from the DTX Explorer. And here are some stick clicks. Okay, let's talk acoustics. You have the toms, and you can see that they're relatively quiet compared to the rest of these drums. Next up comes the cymbals. It's a little bit louder, but still not too bad. Look at the actual drum. That thing maxes the microphone out. It absolutely reaches 100% and caps. Even the pad there is comparable to the muted cymbals. And the snip clicks are definitely louder, I think, than the cymbals or the pad or the drums. So there's a noticeable improvement. It may not be the quietest drum set ever, but it definitely has a quiet advantage compared to regular drums. I don't think I'll be getting calls from the neighbors. So before we go, let's talk about the total costs of this setup. Now, I already had some of the hardware, so it's a little bit unfair, but it'll give you a good idea of what to expect of what you actually need to buy. Starting with the pads. The drum-tec drum pads have to come all the way from Germany, and because I live in Canada, it was a bit of a pain in the ass. They will only ship if you order 100 euros worth of goods, which meant that I needed to bump my order up to 100 euros in order to get them to ship to me. Now, that meant that I ordered 5 pads, 1 beater, and 2 rubber rims for a total about 200 Canadian after shipping and the exchange rate. For the ddrum triggers, they came in at about $100 off of Amazon. That was 3 triggers. For the Cymbomutes, they came in a total about $50. Also ordered those through Amazon. And for the Roland triggers, I didn't purchase them myself, but I believe each one of those is about 60 bucks. So you're looking at like 130, 140 after taxes. Plus, remember, I paid $50 for the shells. Now altogether, that means that this total cost came to about $400. And of course, that doesn't include cymbals or other hardware. And remember, I also cut one of my drums in half to make a second drum, so it doesn't include a snare, really. Now, that's not horrible if you consider the cost of electric drums, but it's also about the same as buying a cheap acoustic kit. So if you have the ability to practice an acoustic kit, you're probably not watching this video, but you might as well just get an acoustic kit. Before I head out, I'll just say this. I really like playing on this kit. The mesh heads definitely feel better than rubber pads, and the cymbals definitely feel better than the cymbal rubber pad things that come with drum kits. So I'm all happy there, and it's quiet enough. Like I said, I haven't got any complaints yet. Thank you for watching, guys. Hopefully, if you're looking to do this gave you some good ideas on what to expect and what you can do. It was kind of a trial and error thing, but it all worked out, I think, and I'm looking forward to practicing a lot more in the next 8 years than I have the last 8 years. Thanks for watching, and happy drumming.